Welcome to another episode of crap. Who are we again?
Nerdstrodamus.
We're Nerdstrodamus, and today we're.
What's the point? What is this? What are we doing here? What is this?
You know what? That was a bad start. You know what we need? Reboot. We're Nerdstrodamus, and today we're talking about reboots and remasters. Welcome to another episode of Nerdstrodamus. I'm Dr. Pants.
And I'm Lambo.
Today, as I said in the intro, we're talking about reboots, remasters, and sequels. Something that I feel like in the past couple of years, especially with the release of the PS4, Xbox One, and Wii U, we've been getting a whole lot of remasters particularly, but also reboots of series.
Yeah, I mean, it's happening culturally. I mean, it's happening in movies a lot more often. You know, even music has sort of like taken on this whole thing where like we're constantly sampling things from the past, and the 80s are new again. Mm-hmm. But yeah, we've got kind of inundated with this idea that, you know, the old stuff was better, and we want just collections of the old stuff. And especially with like the advent of the HD, and the long development cycles that most games have to go through now, it's good to kind of fill your slate with some quality stuff from the past.
Right, and for the most part, I don't have that big of an issue with, say, HD remasters and whatnot. For example, the HD remaster of Final Fantasy X packaged with 10.2, it looks pretty. It's kind of nice to have that. Mm-hmm. You know, things like that, not so bad. Getting a remake of Persona 4 on the Vita with some touched-up graphics and everything, it's not so bad. But I feel like we're getting there's a bit too much of it. Mm-hmm.
Well, I kind of mentioned, you know, in kind of a conversation we had a little bit ago that, you know, development cycles for games used to be so short. I mean, I remember reading a development
guide? Timeline?
A developer's sort of commentary about Donkey Kong Country. One of the coolest games of my childhood. I was 8 years old when it came out. And that the game took from beginning to end about 3 months to develop. You know, that like blows my mind because I looked at that time as like a AAA game.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know?
It was a AAA game.
Yeah, I mean, and maybe, you know, the first of its generation like AAA games, you know, because, you know, games really didn't have this idea that they looked real polished and things like that. And it looked so much better than a lot of games of its time. But they got it done in 3 months, where your typical big, long, you know, I mean, I can't even say how long The Witcher took. The Witcher 3, for example.
Well, Witcher 2 came out in... The Witcher 2 came out, I want to say, like 7 years ago. Yeah. And Witcher 3 just came out this past year.
Yeah, and they were basically exclusively working on Witcher 3 during that entire time.
Well, I mean, that has to do with also the fact that if you look back at those games, they were simpler. There wasn't as much to do.
No, of course. And obviously building a 3D landscape or even a 3D room takes way longer than building a 2D side-scrolling level. I get that. But just the idea that games in general have taken more time to make, you know, has kind of upped the idea that we need to put more games out. So let's release stuff from the past.
Which I agree with to an extent, but at the other time, it's if you flood the market too much, then I think you run the risk of people can't pick up everything, which, I mean, we couldn't in the past anyway, but I mean, I know I don't have time to buy everything, play everything and whatnot, so I've got to really pick and choose. And I know that when I'm looking at games, especially for like the PS4, I'm not going to pick up a copy of God of War 3 Remastered or the Uncharted Collection or Last of Us Remastered or any of these other games, like the Master Chief Collection on Xbox One or the Gears of War Collection. Like,
yeah, a lot of these collections are collections of games that were originally HD, so are they more HD? I guess it's the idea of just, you know, because PS4 doesn't have any backwards compatibility, you know, you can play your old games, I guess.
Which you know, you can read over and over what the reason is for no backwards compatibility, but, I mean, without backwards compatibility, it gives them an excuse to release these games remastered to make more money. Yeah. And my other problem with it is these games come out and they're not full retail, but I believe Last of Us Remastered was still $40 or $50.
Yeah, and you can look at it, and some people have interpreted it as like price gouging, I guess. You know, that, you know, you're putting people into a situation, buy our new system, and now you're going to buy the best game that came out in the last year on our old one for almost the full price. And it can seem a little, you know, it looks a little shady. But you know what? It gives people an opportunity to play a game they didn't play the first time as well.
This is true, and I can understand that. But my argument to that would be, why not just release it as a download title for a little bit cheaper? then there's no overhead or anything.
Yeah, of course, and that's what, for example, Nintendo. I can't get over it. Every time they put out a new version of Mario World, I've probably bought the game 4 or 5 times.
Yeah,
I want to say
the last one being on the new 3DS.
Yeah, so I bought it on my Wii. I had it had a cartridge back in the day. I bought it on my Wii. I transferred it over to my Wii U for $1.50, I think, or $1. And then I also bought it full retail value on my 3DS because they know me and they know I will.
Well, it's not full retail. It was
it's the full. Sorry, their full download price.
Yeah, it was $7.99.
Yeah.
I mean,
full retail for cartridges was like $70 back in the day.
Yeah,
people forget that.
I know. Oh, we have it so bad now. Of course, I'm making the argument that things are still 40 and 50, which is expensive, but
yeah.
I mean, I did the same thing. I bought Donkey Kong Country on my 3DS, which was already on my Wii U. I bought Earthbound, which I already had, but I really do enjoy the Zelda HD remasters, particularly Wind Waker, because Wind Waker was a game that looked good on the GameCube, and it was only available on the GameCube, and then they remastered it for the Wii U.
Yeah, it was a little unappreciated for its time. It really was.
Well, a lot of people at the time just hated the graphics and whatnot.
Yeah.
They didn't like the cartoony style, and I believe that was a game that aged really well, mostly because of those graphics, because then when it got ported to HD on the Wii U, that game looks beautiful, especially in HD.
Yeah, arguably better than the Twilight Princess, version they put out.
Exactly.
So, even though Twilight Princess is also like a pretty decent remaster, kind of adding all the nice stuff over it.
Yeah. Also, one thing I liked about them re-releasing Wind Waker and Twilight Princess to an extent was the use of that second screen on the Wii U. Anytime they remake something for the Wii U, I like it when they utilize that second screen for a purpose. So you're not just getting a straight port of the game again.
Same deal with the Zelda remasters for the 3DS, that both of them use the bottom screen quite a bit for inventory selection and seamless stuff.
Right.
Another one I kind of want to bring up, just because the movie launched this weekend, is the Ratchet and Clank kind of reboot. Where it's a little bit of a reboot, it's a little bit of a remake, but
it's
but it's a brand new game essentially.
Right, and
a lot of people are finding familiar things in it, but
people are loving it. They're really, really enjoying it.
Yeah, it's actually getting me kind of curious, and I might pick it up. So I'm kind of excited. I love platformers and stuff, and so I kind of wish we had more platformers. I'm looking forward to like Ukulele and things like that.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that in the next part of the show.
And I just remembered one of my other favorite remasters, and while I haven't played it that much, just knowing I have it makes me feel better, is the Zone of the Enders HD collection that came out on the PS3 and the Xbox 360. And the reason I love that one, and it's only a generation one step further because they were PS2 games. But the reason I love that is those games weren't huge. They weren't popular. And I think they're really well done games. I like them a lot. I mean, I'm a giant robot guy. But
and the pedigree behind it is Hideo Kojima.
Right. It's the guy who made Metal Gear. I mean, Zone of the Enders 1 came with a demo for Metal Gear Solid 2. That was the only reason people bought that game initially. But still, HD remasters of games like that I'm okay with. And we're not going to bash remasters and remakes all that much. The idea is I don't think everything needs to be remastered and remade. Again, I go back to Last of Us, the Uncharted collection, God of War, the Master Chief collection, the Gears of War Ultimate Edition. All of these games are games that came out last generation. And if you own the previous generation systems, you can buy any of the Uncharted games for, I believe, less than $10. You can get The Last of Us for about $15. All of these things are super cheap on previous systems, and I want to believe that if you really want to play these games, it might be more frugal to just buy a used version of one of the older systems, a PS3 or a 360, and just buy those games and play them.
Yeah. Now, the only counter argument I'm going to give you is I'm going to go back to, it's probably the first remaster collection I've ever put out. And it only came out maybe only a couple of years after the last game in its collection was Super Mario All-Stars. One of the greatest collections ever. So much that 15 years after it came out, they ended up putting out a version unchanged onto the Wii. So they took the original games, totally 16-bit, changed up converted them, made them look beautiful, upgraded the music, made everything different about them. And they're my definitive versions of the game because they were the first versions of the games I played.
That's fine. I would argue
it only came out a little bit afterwards.
You
could still totally pick up an NES and get all those games.
No, you couldn't.
Oh no,
Lost Levels.
Oh, okay. Oh yeah. Okay. Throw in something special, and
exactly, and that's what needs to happen for these remasters.
You're right. Yeah. How come the remasters of Final Fantasy VIII didn't come with the little Chocobo game, the little Tamagotchi Chocobo game?
I have no idea. I wish that did.
The PC version did.
I know.
I only know this because I'm a Final Fantasy.
Yeah, I know. And I wish they had. I really wish they had. But I was really angry about the reboot of Devil May Cry. And there are probably people out there who really, really liked the reboot being called DMC Devil May Cry. Got great reviews and people loved it. And ironically, was a reboot for the PS3, Xbox 360, and then got remastered on Xbox One and PS4. So it's a whole, it encompasses everything.
It's a reboot, remaster, weird
Yeah.
alien child.
Which, and here's the funny thing: not only did did the series get rebooted on PS3, the original 3 games got remastered on PS3.
Okay.
But here's my issue with the game. I played the original Devil May Cry. I loved it. I beat it. I really, really enjoyed it. I love fast-paced action games. It is a game where you go through a castle, you kill a couple of demons. It's low on cinematics, not a huge story. It mostly focuses on action. And I wasn't going to get DMC just because I didn't need to, but it released for free on PS Plus and I played it. And it became a game. It became like I was playing Metal Gear Solid almost. I'd get 5 minutes of action and then 5 minutes of cutscene. 5 minutes of action, 5 minutes of cutscene. And it's breaking up the action too much that I can't get into it. Mm-hmm. And I wish they hadn't done that. And I don't know if the reboot was necessary, especially if they're going to change it that much.
Yeah, well, I think you need to think about who's kind of, ingesting all of these new games. It's the kids. And I've had conversations with a lot of my students, honestly, about games. And one of the things that kind of separates our generations is they like production value, they like cinematics, they like watching story. It's a part of their entire kind of gaming world, you know?
And I completely understand. I understand the gaming landscape has changed because talking to kids too, I understand what they're coming from. But then my argument is, did Devil May Cry need to be rebooted, or could we have just made a new IP?
I don't know.
Like, did it need to be a reboot?
We could say the same thing, and we have no one's played it yet. But the upcoming Final Fantasy VII reboot, which is changing the gameplay completely, which is kind of basically undoing all of the RPG-ness out of it. I can't believe I just said that.
Mm-hmm. You're fine.
Yeah. I know.
Here's my argument to that though. Mm-hmm. And this is going to be my argument to any reboot, remaster, anything, is time. Mm-hmm. There's got to be a certain time difference between these things coming out. My biggest problem with Devil May Cry being rebooted is it got remastered on PS3 and then they rebooted it. Mm-hmm. There was only one generation between it. Final Fantasy VII came out, 1996, 1997?
I think it was 97, yeah.
Yeah, it's been a long time. It's been almost 20 years. And in that time, Final Fantasy VII has become ingrained in the gaming landscape so much. I mean, there's so many memes. There's so much going towards it. There's a reference to it in Wreck-It Ralph that I think a new generation of gamers need to play it, and that's one of those games that does need to be remastered because let's face it, older RPGs,
they're tough to get into.
We can handle it and have no problem with it, but it's tough for other people.
Yeah,
so
it's kind of like taking a little bit of something sweet along with your nasty medicine, right?
Exactly.
For the kids. So I don't know. We'll see how things go.
Yeah. Our last segment of this episode is we're going to review a recent reboot, Star Fox Zero.
Now, I want to preface this, I guess, by saying that I kind of hesitate to call it a reboot because Nintendo has this pattern always of basically every entry in all their main series, they kind of make believe that all the games before it didn't happen. It happens to Zelda. It happens to Metroid for the most part, and except for like the
no. That doesn't happen to Metroid. Metroid actually has a cohesive story. That actually has a cohesive, straight timeline. Okay?
Yeah.
As a Metroid fan, I got it.
Do the Prime games mix in with the others?
Yes. The Prime games actually happen. It's either right after 1 or before 1.
Sure.
They're in there.
Sure. But Kirby, I know. There's no story in Kirby. Mario, same sort of thing. Like, at one time they were friends, him and Bowser in multiple games.
Yeah, I mean, they go-kart together. They play soccer.
Yeah. But then at the beginning of every normal Mario game, it's but then, Star Fox. Is the kind of game that like we've only had basically an entry every generation at best,
Well, there were 2 on the GameCube.
Only technically. But we have an entry basically only every generation, and they basically kind of rebooted the entire story every time. And so Star Fox Zero takes it back to the beginning again. We're kind of put into the kind of the cockpit right along with Fox McCloud this time, and it's a lot of fun.
Oh yeah.
But we've read online though that it's very divisive, and we're going to talk about that divisiveness today because we've both had a chance to play it and enjoy quite a bit of the game. I even tried out some of the co-op multiplayer.
That was fun.
Yeah.
So yeah, the divisiveness about this game really comes down to two big things that I see. Number one's the controls. Number two is the level design. A lot of people are claiming that the levels that are there aren't that great. Now, I mean, I haven't played that much of the game. I only got a chance to try it so that I could, talk about it a little bit, and because I wanted to see why it was so divisive. Level design for me, it was fine. It seemed like a Star Fox game. I played the Corneria level. It felt like Corneria. It was cool. There were enemies, and everything looked good. As far as the controls go, they're weird.
Yeah, it's something. It's
no.
like learning a new way to walk almost.
Right, and a lot of people are upset that it doesn't play like a regular Star Fox game. It shouldn't. I don't think it should. If you're gonna make a new game, you got to do something different. If it's everyone always says like, I want another game in this series, but I want it to play the exact same way as the previous ones. Then we're not progressing. I think we need to change some things up and take some chances, and I'm glad they did with this. I enjoyed the controls.
Yeah. So when you start the game out, they put you in a very familiar place, and I think that was kind of on purpose, probably. They put you on the Corneria level, and it's very reminiscent of the 64 version. You start over water, you're shooting down like waves of enemies. But the game, it feels weird, it feels different, and you suddenly realize that things that you're doing with the gamepad and things that like the screen, there's like this weird kind of in tandem thing you need to do with your brain. You can't pay attention to either one too much. If you make too much attention to the screen, your aiming gets off, you bump into things. If you're paying too much attention to the gamepad, then your trajectory is kind of strange, and it's difficult to move around.
So the way it works, so let's clear it up for people who have no idea. The way it works is the control sticks, the left control stick moves your ship, and if you're looking on the TV, you can see which way your ship is moving and everything. You've got your targeting reticle on there, and the right stick will boost, it'll brake. You can fire with the ZR button, bombs, or with another button. But then on the gamepad, you've got a view from the cockpit.
That never changes.
Changes. And as you tilt the gamepad, that's what moves your targeting reticle more. It moves a little bit when you move the ship, but you have to move your ship in tandem with your targeting.
Yeah. And that's what makes it so kind of weird and alien feeling, is that the old game, you kind of move with your stick, and you kind of think about the position of your ship along with your reticle as like kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
Where in this game, they're totally separate entities. It's right arm, right brain, left brain.
Right.
And that's what makes it kind of challenging, but at the same time, some things are actually even easier. For example, there's the sections where you're in sort of like, they call it all range mode, where you're not on a rail anymore and you're flying around. And
You've got a big arena to fight in.
Yeah, and you're dog fighting with other like Star Wolf characters, and it kind of creates this really cool, almost like you're really in a spaceship flying around kind of feeling.
Right, and I really appreciate that. It actually it creates a tension when you're flying, and it does take some getting used to. I mean, it's not going to be something that you pick up and you play and you're going to be good at right away, which is why I'm really glad that you do start off in Corneria. You start off somewhere familiar, and I mean, playing it, I didn't feel completely at a loss here when I was playing it. I picked it up. I did okay. The big thing that I'd like to mention is and this really solidified it as being this is what it should be, was the game was developed with Platinum Games, who in the past have done things like Bayonetta. That's their big one. They also did things like Vanquish,
Wonderful 101.
They're known for doing weird things and also challenging games. They've got a pedigree behind them that says their games are challenging. And knowing that, playing this game, I know that because it's a Platinum game, I'm not going to get it right away. It's something I'm going to have to work at, something I'm going to have to practice at to get good.
Yeah, and that's honestly a feling I haven't felt since I was a kid. I remember like getting a new game and almost having to to learn a whole new set of skills every time I played a new game. Now I don't want to say I'm a seasoned veteran, but I've been playing games for a long time, and so I can hop right into any shooter or hop right into any side scroller and kind of know what I'm doing.
Right.
Where this felt a little weird and different, and that's the frustrating thing for a lot of people, I think.
Right.
They're maybe possibly unwilling to kind of learn a new way to play.
It might be that, and it's because it's a game in a franchise that's so old. because I mean we're going back to the Super Nintendo era, that we know how the game plays for the most part. Now, of course, this goes back then to Star Fox Adventure, Star Fox Assault, and Star Fox Command, which I now realize makes up the over half of the franchise, all played differently. But people wanted a new Star Fox game that played like the original in 64, and they didn't get that, and I think that's why they're disappointed.
Yeah. And it actually kind of pulls from a lot of the old stuff. So the things that has in common with 64 and the original Super NES game is the kind of mission structure. That you kind of choose a trajectory, but the thing that makes it a little different, of course, they threw in a little wrench, is that there's these portals that you can fly through, and they take you to different levels, and so you can basically follow a different trajectory every time you play. Something it took from Star Fox Assault is the idea of kind of switching into different vehicles and taking on different modes of attack. So you have the Landmaster tank, you have this kind of like helicopter-y kind of thing. It's like a hovercraft. You have the chicken walker.
Does it have an actual name?
I don't know.
It looks like it looks like a chicken.
Yeah.
And then the regular R-Wing. So you've got 4 modes of travel, and I mean, I only got a chance to try the tank, the R-Wing, and the chicken walker, all of which were fine. Did you notice, by the way, the controls for the tank were literal tank controls? You press forward to move forward, and if you press any other direction, it just turns you. They were actual tank controls.
That's crazy. And well, the chicken walker has similar controls though too.
It does, but I just found I found it funny.
Yeah.
But no, one thing I want to mention about with the learning curve is that this goes with Platinum games. Having played a lot of Platinum games, that's how they are. You've got to work at it to be good. I've played a lot. I've played Bayonetta. I've played 1 and 2. I love those games. And one of the best things about those games is you suck at first. And you've got to learn how to play the game and practice and get better. And soon you feel like you're just an unstoppable force.
Yeah.
And I want to believe that's how Star Fox Zero is going to go. That once you learn how to balance looking between the screens and you get used to how it plays, that you're going to be really, really good at the game. And it's going to be really rewarding.
And even for me, making it most of the way through the game, because it's not like the old ones where you just have one clear trajectory to the end. You can go back and replay levels and get new medals. And so I've been kind of doing that a lot. But I'm a lot of the way through the game. And it's gotten a lot easier, and to the point where it's a lot of fun. When you first dogfight with the Star Wolf, you first kind of like realize that there's almost like a Z targeting sort of situation. And when you Z target them, kind of like in Zelda, it reminds me of like when you play Rocket League. There's one of the particular modes where you can just kind of follow the ball, but your car is kind of going any direction.
In Rocket League.
Yeah. That kind of works the same way, that you follow your enemy and you can kind of turn your ship and aim at them and throw missiles at them and stuff like that, and it totally works.
Right.
And then use that in tandem with the screen on the bottom. Now let's get to the
co-op, because that is something that made the game. I mean,
it kind of saved it a little bit.
Wow, it was awesome. Yeah. We played the co-op, and the co-op works like this, where somebody's got the gamepad and they've got the cockpit view with the reticle.
Yeah.
The other person is using a Wii Remote and a nunchuck or a Wii Remote and Pro controller, anything, and they're flying the ship.
Yeah.
So one person's technically controlling the fire, one person's controlling the ship.
Yeah. They do have kind of separate firing systems, so even if you're still just controlling the ship, you still have something to fire with. And honestly, if you're controlling the ship, if you're the person who's missing the old Star Fox, play the co-op, because when you're controlling the ship, it feels just like old Star Fox. You kind of bob and weave, and all the controls feel exactly the same as the old. It completely just fixes that, and then it's fun still then also, because then you have somebody else firing and shooting and taking care of all the other
and you have to work together.
Yeah,
you do have to work together, because I know when we were playing, like I had to call out commands, be like, move the ship in this direction so I can actually shoot them, things like that. And it was really nice just to focus on shooting, because it gave me a limited range. I didn't have to worry about where the enemies were. I just had to tell you, get me in line here. So we got to dogfight Star Wolf that way, and I didn't dogfight them on my own, but I did it co-op with you.
Yeah, I epically failed when I dogfighted them alone.
So when we did co-op, it was much easier then.
Poor Peppy got shot down. I know. But yeah, in co-op, it was super easy, and we were able to kind of defeat them, and it was fun. It was absolutely ridiculous.
I enjoyed it. So. I enjoyed it immensely, and I hadn't picked up the game. I'm pretty sure I'm going to go pick it up today.
Excellent.
Because I'm really, really excited to play it. And, of course, it comes packaged if you buy it retail with Star Fox Guard, which is just this cool little tower defense game, and is just
ridiculously silly.
Just fun.
It's fun.
We won't.
Totally worth the extra $10 though, if you're looking to get it. So if you're looking between the two versions, get the one with Star Fox Card. It'll waste your time enough. Yeah.
Well, here's the interesting thing about it. You can't buy it separately retail, Star Fox Zero, because you have to buy it with Star Fox Card for $60. But you can download Star Fox Zero by itself on the eShop for $50. If you do that, Star Fox Card's only $10. Normally, it's $15 by itself. So, $60 to get both games.
Totally worth it.
For a reboot, once again, this is a reboot I don't mind, because it comes with something else.
And the amount of content on this one versus other old Star Fox games, you know, like way more like kind of sections of the levels. Every level has multiple phases, and it's, you know, I think it's going to be worth your money this time.
Also, the big selling point for me is co-op. When you add a multiplayer feature into a game like that, that makes it fun, because I always want something fun to play co-op.
Yeah, and this is genuine couch co-op. You need to kind of sit there and work together. Both people are indispensable, and it's probably one of the most kind of robust ways to do co-op that I've seen in many years.
And a great utilization of the gamepad, because it doesn't happen often.
Yeah.
So if we had to give, are we going to review Star Fox Zero and Guard as one package?
Yeah, one package.
Okay, so if you had to give Star Fox Zero / Guard a score, what would it be?
That would be 4 R-Wings out of 5.
I would agree. We really enjoyed this game. It was one of your top 5 games of 2016.
Yeah, and it still may be. I know ultimately by the end of the year, it was fun. Like I said, at first it was a little almost kind of worrisome whether it was going to be super great or not. But
I think it's a game that's got to grow on you, and we know that sometimes when games have to grow on you, they end up being the best. So. Now tune in next time on Nerdstrodamus, because we spent this entire episode talking about full big name reboots, remasters coming out of big name companies. We're going to talk about where we find the most original content, indie games. So tune in next time. We'll be talking about indie games. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. If you liked what you see, click subscribe. Also, check the links below for our Twitter, our blog, and our Facebook page. Check back often. We'll be posting new videos weekly.